Imagine for a second that you are staring at the dashboard of a massive commercial airliner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
just picture it. You've got literally hundreds of blinking lights, right?
Yeah.
Dials you have to constantly monitor, specific timing windows you've got to hit perfectly, and just a dozen different metrics you're supposed to be constantly adjusting all at once.
Sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. And that is exactly what modern dieting feels like for most of us today. I mean, you're tracking macros, you're counting calories, you're weighing every single morsel of food on a digital scale.
Right.
You're essentially trying to fly a 747 just to eat lunch.
That is such a perfect way to describe it, honestly.
But what if you can take that entire overwhelming dashboard and just replace it with a single empty plate? That's what we're looking at today.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack this highly focused, really concentrated piece of source material, all about the foundational mechanics of portion control with clean foods.
And I have to say, it is a remarkable departure from the usual noise we see in nutritional advice.
Yeah, it really is. Like, we are looking at a set of guidelines here that doesn't waste a single syllable. It serves as this incredibly efficient tool, just completely stripping away the mental math and leaving behind a purely functional blueprint for how to eat.
Exactly. And because this text is so brief and so concentrated, we want to extract every single drop of meaning from it. We're going to look at the why and the how behind its directives to help you, the listener, streamline your relationship with food.
I'm really looking forward to getting into this.
I am too. And to help decode all these behavioral and structural layers hidden in this short text, I'm thrilled to be doing this deep dive with our resident expert.
Always great to be here.
So let's just start with the very first hurdle most of us face, which is the battle of willpower.
Ah, yes. The classic struggle.
Right. Because we usually think of portion control as this ultimate test of mental fortitude. Like you sit down with a giant bag of chips and you have to aggressively, actively force yourself to stop eating.
Which is a battle you are almost always going to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
What's fascinating here is that the source material immediately bypasses that completely outdated notion of moral discipline.
It just throws it out.
Entirely. The opening premise establishes a completely different set of physics, really. It states very clearly that portion control is easier with clean, minimally processed foods.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we go further, what exactly are we classifying as clean or minimally processed here?
Sure, that's a crucial distinction.
Because that phrase, I mean, it gets thrown around a lot. Are we talking about, just gnawing on raw broccoli from the garden? Or does a cooked steak or a baked potato fit into this framework?
The text leans heavily on the minimally processed distinction. So we are talking about foods that remain as close to their original natural state as possible before they actually hit your plate.
Right. Okay.
So a baked potato, that is minimally processed. But a deep-fried potato chip that's been engineered with artificial flavorings and preservatives, that is highly processed.
That makes total sense.
The whole framework relies on the inherent physical properties of those whole foods. The fiber, the water content, the actual cellular structure. It uses all of that to do the heavy lifting of portion control for you.
Okay, I love this physics angle. Let's really dig into that. Think of portion control as trying to stop a moving car.
Oh, I like this analogy.
If your diet is built on highly processed foods,
Mm-hmm.
the chips, the cookies, the engineered snacks,
Yeah.
it's like trying to slam on the brakes while driving on a sheet of pure ice.
Yeah, exactly.
You can have the strongest brakes in the world, which represents your willpower, but the environment is fundamentally working against you. The friction just isn't there, so you slide right past the stop sign and overeat anyway.
Changing the surface you are driving on is the entire point of that opening directive.
Right.
Because minimally processed foods act as natural physical friction. They actually require more chewing, they literally take up more volume in the stomach, and they digest slower.
So you're installing the friction directly into the meal.
Precisely. You are building the physical resistance into the meal itself, which completely reframes the entire experience of dieting from arbitrary restriction to deliberate selection.
But wait, I want to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Let's say I choose exclusively minimally processed foods, right? I am fully on board. I fill my plate with whole almonds, fresh avocados, and I just douse it in olive oil.
Okay, sure.
Those are entirely clean, minimally processed foods, but they're incredibly dense. If I eat a massive bowl of almonds, I am still consuming thousands and thousands of calories.
You absolutely are.
So how does simply choosing clean foods magically solve the portion control problem? if the overall volume is still just way too high?
Well, it doesn't magically solve it on its own, which is a really brilliant observation.
Thank you. I try.
The source material doesn't actually claim that clean foods prevent overeating. It explicitly says portion control becomes easier.
Ah, easier, not automatic.
Exactly. It sets the baseline condition. You are installing the friction, like you said. But to handle that almond and avocado trap you just mentioned, the text immediately introduces a secondary mechanism.
Okay, what is it?
You've chosen the right materials, but now you need a structural boundary to contain them, which brings us away from just selecting the food and into the actual geometry of the plate.
The geometry of the plate. Because the source doesn't just leave you hanging with some vague mandate to eat better. It follows up with an exact physical assembly guide.
It does. It's incredibly specific.
It tells us to first fill exactly half of the plate with vegetables. Then you add lean protein, whole grains, and healthy fats in moderation.
Notice the transition there from abstract concepts to undeniable physical reality.
Right. It's not just an idea anymore.
Traditional dieting requires a massive cognitive load. Like we were saying, you are tallying numbers in your head, you're weighing ounces, you're cross-referencing 3 different apps on your phone.
It's exhausting.
But by mandating that exactly half of your physical real estate is reserved solely for vegetables, the source uses a spatial boundary instead of a counting metric.
Okay, so if you're listening to this, picture yourself standing in your kitchen holding an empty dinner plate. You don't need a digital scale, you don't need a calculator, you literally just need your eyes.
Just your eyes.
You draw a literal, invisible line down the middle of that circle, and that single visual anchor eliminates half the decisions you have to make before you even start serving the food.
The relief of that anchor point cannot be overstated.
I bet.
Because decision fatigue is a primary driver of overeating. By cutting the plate in half visually, you've outsourced the hardest part of portion control to basic geometry.
Wow.
And the specific language the text uses to describe this process reveals a very deliberate hierarchy. It instructs you to fill half your plate with vegetables.
Phil, yeah, that word implies volume. It sounds like creating a foundation.
It establishes the structural base of the meal. Vegetables, generally speaking, are the highest in water and fiber while being the lowest in caloric density.
So they provide maximum physical friction with minimal caloric penalty.
Exactly. And then the text shifts its verbs. For the other components, the lean protein, the whole grains, it tells you to add them to the remaining space.
Add them. Okay, so the remaining 50% of the plate is shared territory.
It is.
That actually answers my challenge about the almonds from earlier.
It does.
Because if half the plate is already spoken for by the vegetables, I simply don't have the physical room to pile up a mountain of calorie-dense fats or grains.
No, without stacking them into some kind of crazy tower.
Right, which obviously breaks the visual rule of the plate.
The spatial constraint enforces the portion limit naturally. You don't have to weigh the protein or the grains because they are literally fighting for real estate in a confined zone.
That is so smart.
And within that remaining half of the plate, there is one final, really crucial linguistic nuance.
Lay it on me.
The text gives vegetables a strict quantitative measurement, which is exactly half. Protein and grains are instructed to be added. But healthy fats, your avocados and olive oils, are the only component in the entire framework given a specific qualitative boundary.
Oh, because it says they must be used in moderation.
Yes, in moderation.
It is the one and only time the text asks the user to make a judgment call.
Because the source material implicitly understands the density of those specific materials. Even within that restricted 50% zone, fats pack an outsized punch.
Oh, for sure.
By adding the in moderation cap, the text is essentially asking you to treat healthy fats as a garnish or an accent rather than a primary building block of the meal.
Okay, so it creates a fully self-regulating system. The clean foods provide the friction, the half plate of vegetables provides the physical boundary, and the remaining space forces the proteins, grains, and fats into naturally reasonable proportions.
It is incredibly elegant on paper.
It really is. And this is a big, we have to address the human element here.
Ah, yes. Life.
Because you can build the perfect, most elegant plate of food in theory. But what happens when you get home at 7:00 p.m. after a miserable commute and you are just absolutely starving?
Right.
I mean, that beautiful geometry usually goes right out the window.
Of course it does. And the framework anticipates that exact scenario.
Really?
Yes, because having a plate layout is totally useless if your behavioral state prevents you from actually implementing it. This is why the source seamlessly transitions from the physical makeup of the food to a behavioral timeline of self-defense.
Here is where it gets really interesting, because it outlines 3 specific actions. Prepare meals ahead, eat slowly, and practice mindful eating.
Right.
Now, when I first read those, they just looked like standard generic diet advice that you see in every magazine.
They do sound a bit cliche at first glance.
Yeah, but when you really map them out against the human experience of hunger, they form this fascinating chronological strategy.
Let's break that down.
Let's look at the temporal space these actions occupy. Prepare meals ahead is an action that happens entirely in the past.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the ultimate defensive maneuver against your own biology.
How so?
Well, when you are starving at 7:00 p.m., your brain is not interested in plate geometry or nutritional friction. Not at all.
No, it just wants food.
No, right. It is receiving chemical signals demanding immediate caloric energy. If you wait until that exact moment of vulnerability to decide what to eat, your impulses are going to win every single time.
You're going to order a massive pizza or just eat a bag of highly processed snacks because the friction is zero and the reward is instant.
Exactly. But by instructing us to prepare meals ahead, the source is basically telling us to outsource our decisions to our past selves.
And I love that. Outsourcing to your past self.
You prep the food on a calm Sunday afternoon to protect your tired, hungry self on a chaotic Wednesday evening.
So you are removing the burden of choice from the moment of hunger. By the time Wednesday evening rolls around, the environment is already totally controlled.
Yes. The clean foods are selected, and the geometry is ready to be deployed. You've ensured that the easiest, most accessible option in your kitchen is also the option that aligns with the structural rules we've discussed.
Okay, so our past self has successfully defended us, and the healthy food is now sitting in front of us. This is where the text brings us into the present moment with the next directive, which is eat slowly.
Right.
Now, we've all heard since we were kids that we should chew our food, but how does eating slowly actually function as a mechanical tool for portion control?
It comes down to the biological lag time in our digestive system.
Lag time.
Yeah, so the stomach actually takes time to physically expand, to process the food, and to release the hormones that travel up to the brain to signal satiation. That entire communication loop can take up to 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Wow. So if you are eating an entire meal in, say, 7 minutes, you are essentially outrunning your own fullness signals.
You are totally outrunning them. You are bypassing the very friction you work so hard to build into the meal in the first place.
Ah, I see.
Even if you've prepared minimally processed foods and you completely respected the half-plate boundary, rapidly shoveling the food down your throat nullifies the physical resistance.
Because your brain doesn't even know you're full yet.
Exactly. Eating slowly allows the body to register the volume and the density of what you are consuming in real time. It synchronizes your brain with your stomach.
Okay, so we have the defensive preparation in the past and the physical pacing in the present. But there is one final piece to this timeline. Practice mindful eating.
Yes, the final pillar.
But how does the source differentiate between just eating slowly and actually eating mindfully? Because, I can sit on my couch and very slowly eat a perfectly proportioned meal while being completely hypnotized by scrolling through my phone.
Which means your brain is entirely disconnected from the act of consumption.
Right.
Mindful eating, in the context of this specific framework, acts as the cognitive glue holding the physical and historical steps together.
The cognitive glue.
Yeah, it means remaining consciously engaged with the structure you've built.
So it's about paying attention to the friction.
Yes, exactly. It is acknowledging the crunch of the vegetables, recognizing the moderation of the fats, and actively monitoring your own physical pacing.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you are distracted by a screen or, a really stressful conversation, your autonomic nervous system just takes over the chewing and swallowing. You completely lose the conscious awareness of satiation.
Which makes it incredibly easy to just consume everything on the plate, regardless of whether your body actually needs it all.
Precisely.
These 3 behaviors aren't just a list of tips, they are totally interdependent pillars.
They really are.
Let's look at the failure states if we remove just one of them. Say you prepare ahead and you eat mindfully, paying full attention to the meal, but you eat incredibly fast.
Well, in that case, you are still going to outpace your fullness signals. You'll likely seek out a second portion before your brain even registers the first one.
And conversely, let's say you eat slowly and mindfully, but you completely fail to prepare ahead.
Right, so you might be eating very slowly and thoughtfully through a massive delivery order of highly processed fast food.
Because you made a panicked, impulsive decision when you were starving.
Exactly. Every single piece relies completely on the others.
The food selection relies on the plate geometry, the geometry relies on the advanced preparation, and the consumption relies on physical pacing and mental presence.
It really highlights how a text this brief can contain such an interconnected web of logic.
It's pretty amazing.
It reveals that the struggle most people face isn't a lack of desire to be healthy. It really is a failure of structure.
A failure of structure.
Yes. We try to implement one isolated piece of advice like just trying to eat slowly or just buying healthier snacks without connecting it to the larger mechanisms of our behavior.
Let's pull all of this together for everyone listening. We started by looking at a set of guidelines that completely removes the overwhelming dashboard of modern dieting.
Right. No more blinking lights.
No more flying this 747. What this source material provides is a comprehensive system where portion control is no longer a punitive measure. It isn't about staring at a tiny amount of food and willing yourself to be okay with it.
No, it transforms portion control into a natural outcome.
It is the inevitable byproduct of a carefully constructed environment. It just happens automatically if you respect the mechanics.
If you respect the physics.
Exactly. First, you prioritize clean, minimally processed foods to create physical friction. Foods that require chewing, take up space, and digest slowly.
Right.
Then you lean on the visual boundary of the plate. You draw that line, dedicating half your space to the high-volume, low-calorie foundation of vegetables.
Which naturally forces your proteins and grains into supplementary roles.
Exactly, while keeping those dense, healthy fats firmly in moderation.
You're letting the geometry do the heavy lifting so your brain doesn't have to.
And finally, you wrap all of that physical preparation in a behavioral defense strategy. You protect your future self from decision fatigue by preparing meals ahead of time.
Outsourcing to the past.
Yes. You respect your body's biological lag time by eating slowly, giving your brain the chance to actually register the friction you've created.
Giving it that 20 minutes.
Right. And you anchor yourself in the present moment through mindful eating, ensuring that your cognitive awareness is participating in the meal. When you align the materials, the boundaries, and the timeline, the daily battle against your own appetite simply fades away.
It changes the entire paradigm of how we approach our daily routines.
It really does.
We spend so much energy feeling guilty about our perceived lack of willpower, but looking at how tightly this system relies on structure, it raises an important question for you to consider long after we finish this discussion today.
Oh, I love this part. What's the final thought we are exploring?
Well, the source dictates that preparing meals ahead and eating slowly are fundamental structural requirements for mindful portion control to even exist. If that is objectively true, we have to ask ourselves a really difficult question. How much of our daily struggle with portions, the guilt, the frustration, the feeling of failure at the dinner table is actually just a symptom of living a perpetually rushed, unprepared lifestyle rather than a lack of personal discipline?
Wow.
Are we actually failing at willpower, or are we just consistently failing to prepare the environment?
That is a massive perspective shift. It completely reframes the chaos of a busy week. If you are exhausted, running late, and grabbing whatever is closest, you aren't lacking discipline.
Yeah.
You're just lacking the runway.
You can't land the plane if you haven't built the runway.
You really can't. Well, that is all the time we have for today's exploration. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the underlying mechanics of eating.
It was a pleasure.
Remember, the most profound changes often come from the simplest blueprints, provided we actually understand the physics behind them. Keep analyzing the structures in your daily life, and as always, stay curious.